And we're live.
Recording now. The red light is on.
Yeah, but actually we're not going to be live.
Are we just riffing?
Riffing? What does that mean?
No plan. Kind of going. Feeling the vibe. That kind of stuff.
So I want to know, what was your thoughts on that Conor McGregor fight?
Surprising. I thought Conor was going to win. Just because it's Conor, and even though he's lost before and he doesn't have like a perfect record or anything, I don't know. He's that kind of a person.
Conor McGregor.
He's Conor McGregor, and he's just that kind of person that like he's got something inside of him that not a lot of people have. But you know, he's become a very famous, wealthy person, so that might take away from it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know a whole lot about like UFC. I'm kind of, I don't know, not big into UFC. So I don't know the fighters like super well, but just I was watching pre-fight talk, and they were just lining them up, comparing them two of the best fighters. I mean, someone's gotta lose. And really, I thought Conor was winning first round. I thought that Conor was winning, but it only takes one good hit to lead to a knockout.
That's the thing about the sport, though. It's not very predictable. I mean, yeah, there's like you can have odds as to like, okay, this guy has like a chance of really winning versus the other guy, but like, it just takes one hit, and anybody can land that shot. So no matter like how good you are and how big the deficit of skill level it is, if that person that's kind of the underdog gets one good connect, I mean, that can knock the dude out. It just takes that one. So it's super unpredictable, which that's what makes, I think, the sport exciting.
Yeah, obviously there's better fighters than other people that are like more likely to win.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things I like about all professional sports is because you're literally, once you're at that pro level, it's like anything could happen almost.
Yeah.
That's why I like the Super Bowl so much and leading up to it, because you have to go through playoffs where literally it's single loss elimination. Anything can happen. Mm-hmm. You can have an off day and you're out of the playoffs and you don't go to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
That's one of the things that I like about like NFL. But you see that with like all pro sports. They're just, I mean, except basketball, but they're just so good. Like,
yeah. But like, so that they all have like a sense of like unpredictability. I mean, yeah, anything can happen. I guess probably there's more sports. There's sports that are more, you're able to kind of predict the outcome of it. I wonder like what golf is. I don't really pay attention to golf that much, but I would think golf's pretty. I mean, obviously you have like the Tiger Woods and stuff that always seem to win the tournaments and stuff, but I feel like golf would be like in that kind of realm of really anything can happen because it's such a.
It's a game all about consistency.
Yeah.
Right. And if you just mess that up, if you just have an off day, like sometimes you won't be able to recover from that. I don't know. I don't keep up with golf really.
And
either.
then you go into like sports like baseball where they have so many games in a season that even if you're on a hot streak, you have a chance to dip down low and do really bad for a while. So it's like there's such a big sample size that really anything. So you have like kind of different ways that sports are, because like fighting, you're only fighting once or twice a year at most.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
You know, so like that really counts.
Yeah, I was thinking about baseball because baseball is like a series, so it's the World Series instead of like a championship game. Mm-hmm. So like you can have a bad game, you can have two bad games. Like it's okay, you can still come back and win the World Series. But whenever it gets into like football, and then of course whenever you're UFC and you're fighting for a title, for a belt or something, you have multiple rounds, I guess, but it's all or nothing whenever it gets to knockout. If someone has a knockout or a TKO, then that's it. It's over.
And I'm with you. I'm not super when you're talking about UFC. I don't know how the scoring happens. I don't know how like the judges determine whenever it's a draw or if it's by a decision what constitutes a win versus a loss. You know, I'm not that well into knowing the moves and what kind of, you know, but it's super exciting because of just, I think watching it, you can appreciate the athleticism and like the dedication and just how raw that sport is. It's a very pure sport.
That and simply people like Conor McGregor that are gonna hype themselves up nonstop, talking shit, like going in. Like, these are fighters, like these are dogs, like they're going in ready to fight, right? Yeah. So you can't, you know, there's like that appeal, especially as men. I feel like there's that appeal to be like, hell yeah, like,
oh dude,
kick his ass. Like,
we were in the bar here in Fort Worth on West 7th, and I mean the bar was packed. There was not an open seat available. We tried to get a friend in. There was no way. We were lucky to get the seats, so the place was packed. And I mean, yeah, you felt kind of like the testosterone rise whenever the fights were going on. Like, I mean, people were into it, and like especially whenever Conor lost. I mean, everybody was flipping out because no one really. I mean, you could say like I hope Conor loses, or you might not like Conor, but chances are like in your head, you're probably thinking, oh man, he has a good chance of winning.
Yeah, Poirier was an underdog for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, I like that kind of thing.
Me too.
I like the underdog story.
He wasn't like a real underdog. I think just as far as like public appeal, he was an underdog. I think comparing their wins and losses, like I think Poirier had more wins, but also more losses, but like just by a couple. Yeah. I don't know. They were close. They're two of the best fighters for sure.
No, they're especially like when you're talking about Conor, who hadn't fought in a while. Okay, who are you going to put up against him? You're not going to put some scrub up. You're going to put someone that's that's worthy of that level of fighting. Because for one, you want it to be a good fight. You want to make the most money out of it for the UFC putting on the show and pay-per-views and stuff like that. But you want somebody that's worthy of that fight. And then, what's going to happen after this whenever they decide, who's Conor going to fight versus who's, what's kind of the next play. And they're thinking, maybe if they can bring in Khabib back, because, he said he's retired.
Yeah.
Is he going to fight again? I don't know. But I know very minor details on the UFC. I know kind of like the big names. I had an old roommate in college that was super into it. And that's what kind of like piqued my interest in it a little bit, at least like watching kind of the main fights. We'd always like order the pay-per-view and have people over. A lot of fun. But before that, didn't really know. But it's become a really big sport, and I think it's surpassing boxing. I mean, boxing's kind of like the old school glory sport. It's like it has this long history, but I think nowadays we look for more of the excitement factor. More than anything else, at least for the average watcher, someone that's not really into either sport, but which one would I rather watch? Like in my case, and maybe yours as well. Do I want to watch a boxing match or do I want to watch UFC? I would watch UFC if I had the choice.
It's interesting though how we have like the crossovers, right? So we have Conor going over. That's starting to happen more in boxing. Yeah. Now I just saw today that Jake Paul is gonna stand up box Ben Askren, who's a UFC fighter. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's kind of interesting that I'm glad that they allow them to kind of cross over like that because it makes it more interesting. Obviously, they're still going to make a ton of money.
It can only go one way though.
Why do they care? What do you mean? Oh, you're saying that boxers don't go into UFC? They're just not trained like that.
Unless you did train. I mean, it might happen. No. I don't know, but it's a lot harder. I feel like.
Yep, I think so, and I think the boxers typically have the upper hand. I don't think it's like really much of a fair crossover, but the thing is, boxers, the entire time they train, they're not grappling at all. They're not throwing kicks, right? But UFC, while they are part of their training is grappling and throwing kicks, another significant part of their training is stand up boxing, fighting, and throwing punches. So it's different.
And you have fighters that are like better at one versus the other, right? That have like a better ground game versus stand up. But yeah, like I think it's just a whole different world when you're putting those two together.
And then you have the YouTubers.
Yeah. And then you have like the YouTubers. It's crazy.
They're just like naturally, very talented people. Have done some wrestling before. Like I know Logan Paul did wrestling and stuff, but he was a collegiate wrestler. Yeah. And like pretty good at it apparently. I mean, I don't know like where he went or whatever, but he was still boxing too.
Yeah. But now he considers himself. He has like determined like I'm coming out of being a YouTuber to be a like he calls himself a professional fighter now.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's no telling how much money he made off of that. He probably did that, and then was like, well, I guess that was the second time he fought, right?
Who, Jake or Logan?
Because I guess they both. Okay, yeah, that's right. I get those two because they look the same, dude.
They do.
And I think they one fought another guy, and then the other. So they both fought, right? So confusing. So. But yeah, now like I guess he probably did that and was like, dude, I can make some pretty good money off of this because those fighters, especially on like the top tier pay-per-view fights, they're gonna make
another thing
a lot
too. Now we got basketball players, right? You can't leave them out.
Yeah,
because that's who Jake Paul. There was a YouTuber versus a basketball player.
That's right.
Now Jake Paul is going to go after Ben Askren as he's a UFC fighter, but he's going after him, and they were going to box. So it's going to be interesting.
So it's almost like people like on the outside of that sport and maybe if they have a background or not a background, they're just kind of like, I want to try this out.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, then, and Logan fought KSI, right? Who was also a YouTuber.
Yeah.
So it was like the battle of the YouTubers, and now they're trying to branch.
It's so weird, but it's entertaining. It draws eyes. It's
but
entertaining. To me.
Logan's now supposed to fight Floyd.
Yeah.
Yeah, Logan's gonna fight Mayweather. Like,
Is that really gonna happen? I haven't like.
think so.
I saw like the initial kind of like.
They're like all over the
articles
place.
and stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of how they've like built their kind of brand, if you will, is just by being headliners. You know, like they just always in the headlines. Something's always going on in the hot spot.
And then the petty, funny, shit talking social media side of things. I think he did it to Connor because he wanted to fight Connor. He kind of called Connor out. He unfollowed everybody
except for Connor's wife,
except for his wife.
Well, yeah. Oh, and he called his wife. He called his wife out too.
Yeah.
Like whenever he called him out.
So then that sport has that aspect to it. That's the shit talking, which
that
is
fits
just
well
fun.
with them because they're good at being like in the media and shit talking and stuff.
So that's kind of like what's going on like recently, man, with like all the sports. It's
last but not
exciting.
least, who you got for the Super Bowl?
Super Bowl, man.
Brady versus Mahomes.
I think it's the Bucks.
Really?
Yeah.
I think the Chiefs deserve the Super Bowl. I think the Bucks deserve the Super Bowl. I'm a root for my boy Brady.
Yeah. I hope it's a good game.
Either one, they both deserve it.
I'm not super tied to either one team.
I saw something that was pretty funny. I think I saw it on Twitter. It was saying that so this is the 10th time Tom Brady's going to the Super Bowl out of 21 seasons. So his percent chance of going to the Super Bowl based off his career is better than Steph Curry's 3-point percentage based off his career.
Oh wow!
So they're saying, so the tweet was saying basically that Tom Brady is more likely to go to the Super Bowl in a year, the year that he plays. He's more likely to go to the Super Bowl than Steph Curry is to make a 3-point shot.
And then like Steph Curry is known for 3-pointers.
Exactly. He's got one of the highest 3-point percentages in the league, or in the history, I think.
That's a crazy stat.
So yeah, and that's a testament one to Tom Brady, but also to the team he came from.
When it was really cool to see kind of like people posting and stuff about it's two generations. It's both ends of the spectrum as like two generations of quarterbacks at least coming together to play against each other. Which is like really cool.
Tom being the old guy and Mahomes being the young guy.
Yeah, there was this picture of it was like a little baby goat and like an adult goat like right next to each other, and then it was like the other picture down below it was them too. So it was like a good like representation of what's going on. I think it's the Bucks. I don't know. I feel like just Tom Brady has this magic ability to pull shit off.
Yeah, dude, he's the GOAT.
And I mean, it's surprising that he was just able to switch teams real quick and then take him to the Super Bowl.
Now, keep in mind, the Bucks have like weapons.
Well, yeah.
Like they have great wide
not just him
receivers,
alone.
and they have Brady, and they have good defense. Like, but yeah, a quarterback's your leader, and you got to have a quarterback to make plays. He makes
and to
big
have
plays,
somebody
got good wide receivers.
that substantial. I think it probably permeates through the whole team.
I think definitely, and it proves something that he comes from an organization that he knew so well that he literally grew up in, and then the first year at a completely new organization in a new location. He's not in Boston anymore. It's not cold. He's in Florida. It's hot. It's sunny. Also, first time that any team has gone to the Super Bowl at their own stadium.
Yeah, I saw that too.
The Bucks are going, and it's in Florida. But yeah, I think it's just a testament to Tom Brady. But
his skill level for sure. Like, I mean, yeah,
100%.
And there was that argument of it was the organization of the New England Patriots. It was Bill Belichick. It was what made him great,
Yep.
And the argument was no, it's his skill. It's him alone. Obviously, that's not true. No matter who you think's right or wrong. But
two sides to the dynasty. Patriots lost a lot of players too. Had a lot of COVID exempt players that didn't want to play, and they got to rebuild a little bit.
I mean, what a weird just year of sports just in general.
It's impressive that we got through it, right?
Yeah.
Like we're here, we're having a Super Bowl, because if you think back to March of last year, whenever March Madness was starting up and basketball wasn't happening.
No, like, and we kind of like were scared of like, are we going to even have sports for a while? Is football going to even happen? Are they going to be able to pull it together logistically to make sure that everybody's, tested or doesn't have it? And we didn't really know at that time what it actually was or how bad it was. Like anytime a pro athlete, came down with COVID, it was like everybody knew about it. They're like, such and such came down with COVID. And you're like, oh God, I hope nothing happens to him.
Yeah,
but
it was running through the NBA teams.
Yeah,
baseball teams picked it up too.
But there's just so much money in it. It's like they're gonna figure out how to do it if they
yeah,
can.
we also needed that too, right? Like as a country, what are we without sports? You know, that's like not that it's for everybody, but a large population that is their like relax on Sunday and watch football and have something like a team to rally behind. That kind of camaraderie of having fellow fans and things like that.
It's like I was hanging out like at my apartments and stuff at the pool and like hanging out with people that live there, and we were watching nothing for a while, which was kind of nice, to be honest, like to be doing, like, try to find other things to do other than watch sports. So that was kind of interesting and kind of enjoyable. But then once sports came on, basketball started coming back. It was kind of nice to a sense of normalcy.
Yeah.
And then once football rolled around and we stopped watching basketball pretty quick.
Yeah.
So, but it been an interesting, like, just year of sports, but I think we're kind of like on the way out and it's starting to just become normal again. Fans are starting to, which is something that I want to do and I haven't done in a while, is go to like a pro game. Even a baseball game.
No, let's go to a Stars game. Stars are playing.
Dude, I've been wanting to go to that for sure.
Yeah,
like,
Mason and I talking about that. Mm-hmm. All right, let's do it.
And also going to the new Texas Ranger Stadium.
Yep.
I haven't gone there yet.
Yeah,
I've been to Texas Live, which is like the restaurant-y area outside of it, but I've never been into the stadium itself to watch a game. I want to do that. I love baseball, like actually going to the game.
Yeah, the new Globe Life's going to be nice. The worst part about going to watch the Rangers was that it was going to be sitting in the sun and sweating your ass off.
Yeah.
And this one's got a dome with AC.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. That should be nice.
It's a weird, exciting fantasy, all that kind of stuff. It was kind of weird. There were a lot of injuries and just kind of weird things happening throughout all the sports, but at least we had it. At least we had that to kind of hang on to as Americans, and I think the rest of the world, because especially like when you talk about football and basketball, and probably baseball, those are worldwide sports. I mean, you have for basketball over in Asia, that's just huge.
Yeah.
It's a massive sport over there. They have a huge fan base, and you saw that whenever kind of the stuff with China and everything. The NBA was kind of one of the first ones to kind of back off of stating their opinions on China and the things going on over there, because they're such a huge fan base and has such revenue for it. Like, there was something that they had like a custom jersey that you could make, and if you had some kind of quote or something on the jersey that you could put on the back that had something to do with China or whatever, it would automatically say you couldn't do it. Like, it was like to that extent.
Oh, I remember that.
I can't remember what the actual quote was that like someone had tried to put on the jersey.
Was it people that were like protesting though, like the Chinese government or something?
Yeah. Oh, it was what's the city? Hong Kong, right?
Oh, or Beijing?
No, it's Hong Kong.
Hong Kong.
That was the one with like all the people and they were very suppressive, but they were in the streets with American flags. It was Hong Kong.
I don't recall.
So, like, you know the history of Hong Kong?
No.
Okay, so Hong Kong used to be owned, or not owned, but was under the British rule. It's been there forever, and it's just recently, like, they had a contract basically where it said once it became, I think it was either 2019 or 2020, it would become back under Chinese rule. And so that was kind of like, and if you go over there, it's really weird. If you go to Hong Kong, I watched this like kind of documentary over it. It's so ingrained in their culture, like British culture of like tea and just the way they dress and the buildings there. It's really strange because it's been under their rule, their empire from way back when. So now, like, and really the people there didn't really want that to happen. They didn't want to go back under Chinese rule for reasons, you know. So anyway, that goes back to, you know, the NBA, their fan base over there, and, you know, the controversy on, can I put this on the back of a custom jersey that, you know, you could put anything on basically, unless it's like profanity or something. But yeah, they weren't able to put it on the jersey. So it's, you know,
I remember something about that. I had no idea the details though.
Yeah.
Back then I wasn't paying attention to the news like I am now, because New Year's resolution, I'm staying up on my political game. I've been listening to new podcasts that come out like 15 minutes every morning. It's like updates for just news, things going on in the world today. It's
starting to cook at home, right?
Yeah, I've been cooking at home. Good.
Yeah,
I have.
Dude, you've been.
It's been my first week, so
that food strong. Porn that you've been fucking sending over, man. That chicken looks good.
That's one of my new favorite things right now is a beer can chicken. I get them at Walmart for $5, dude, and I'll get a couple of them and freeze them, thaw them out one day, and just season them up. Put a beer can in them. Shout out Lyric. She got me this like little tray that you put a beer can on, and then you put the chicken on top, so it kind of stabilizes it.
Yeah,
so I
use
like that. I actually need to get 2 of them because I cooked 2 the other night. And Macy's been killing it with the air fryer. So like I made some chicken, we shredded it up. She did.
Those are like really popular. Like I see everybody uses them. Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude, they're great.
I want to make wings with it.
If you got an air fryer and a Traeger, you're set. You don't need anything else.
Like that's it. Like, but like for me, like I live. Well, actually, you know what? So I was like considering getting one of those because I can't get a Traeger. I would really want one actually, but you know, living in an apartment, you can't have one. They have Traeger makes like these smaller ones.
Yeah,
they're like a suitcase looking thing.
Yeah. Don't get one of those. Jeff was telling me that. Yeah, he told me he was gonna buy one to put in his apartment. It's still a pellet smoker. It's gonna smoke up your apartment if you put it by a wall.
No, I'm saying like put it out on my balcony.
On your balcony. No. Oh, Jeff was gonna use it inside, dude.
No. Yeah, where's that smoke gonna go?
I don't know.
They're gonna say your apartment's on fire. No, doing it outside, but it's really compact and small. I wonder like how well it actually smokes. Yeah. I'm sure it's not the same. But if you can't,
it might be worth it.
It might be, but definitely the air fryer is something that I want to look in getting like wings and just some other things that you can't really like. It's hard to cook some things in the apartment, especially when it's small. You know, it stinks up the place. You know, you get smoky in there. It's like when I cook bacon. When I cook bacon, it smokes up the place.
Yeah,
and then it smells like bacon the rest of the day.
So there's an air fryer smell too. It smells like fried air. I don't know how to explain it. It's something that you smell and like you would be like, you know how whenever electronics burn, you know how you smell that and that's a distinct smell and you wouldn't know how do you describe that?
Yeah.
You know, it's something like that. Like it's not like electronics frying, but it's like a different kind of unique smell.
And some people might like listening might get what this is if you played sports, especially because locker rooms, they'd put them in locker rooms. They're for staff. So it's supposed to get rid of staph. For how it does it, I'm not really sure, but it's basically a little fan. It's not very big, and it's got these little electrodes like kind of around the fan, like right on the outside of the fan. And you can kind of, if you get closer, you can hear it like clicking, like it's shooting off a little electricity, and it smells like electricity. Like it's a weird smell. But so I kind of get like maybe what that smells like.
I bet that's exactly right. And not the same, but you know, the same kind of references to unique smell. I was actually listening to a podcast like yesterday. This guy was training his dogs to tree mountain lions, and he was explaining that like the dogs followed the tracks of the mountain lions all the way up, and this is like a puppy that he was just training, so it really didn't know what was going on.
Yeah,
and he was trying to force it to look up and look into the tree because at this point they had treed the cat, and so he's like lifting its head. And he's like, you don't understand, like it's so difficult to show a dog what they're smelling without being like in like close proximity
for it being like right there.
Yeah, and it's not anything that they've ever smelled before, so it's completely new. And the way he explained it, which is what I thought was cool, was he was like, imagine if you had never like associated, imagine if you had never associated a smell with an apple pie. And you walked into a room that had an apple pie sitting there, like with a whole bunch of other things too.
Yeah.
And you would smell like the room, you would smell the apple pie, and you're like, that smells good. But if you weren't ever associated with that smell, you wouldn't know what it was.
No idea what it was.
Exactly. And so that's how he was explaining it, which I thought was interesting.
Would you think would you think it would smell good though? If you never smelt the smell, unless I guess if you smelt other sweet things.
It's like when you try things for the first time, when you taste them, you might have never tasted them before.
Good point.
And you just automatically don't like it, right?
Yeah. So anyway, you talked about kind of hunting just there, and we're talking about New Year's resolutions. I think one of your New Year's resolutions was hunting and getting better at it, I guess, or having more success at it.
Yeah, I got a story for you.
How'd that go? You went hunting not too long ago.
Yeah, so like I've talked about in the previous episode, I'm not a very successful hunter, or I haven't been in the past at least. And this year was time for that to change, basically. Mostly, I would say it's because I don't spend enough time in the stand typically. To be successful, I usually only go like once a year, and typically I'm trying to be more picky and look for bucks. This year I went with my sister. I want her to get one.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got a whole book of excuses as to why I've only shot two. I've shot 2 bucks before in my life. They were good bucks, little 8 points. But anyway, this year was the year I wanted to get one with my bow. And see, the thing is, that you may not understand is like I did shooting competitions in high school. I did archery a lot. It was like one of my favorite things to shoot. So I've been shooting my bow, my same bow that I saved up for and bought brand new when I was in high school. I've been shooting it since I guess that was 2012 when I bought that bow. And I've put a lot of arrows through it. So I've gotten very good with it. I've gotten very comfortable with it. Like I've had the same set of 12 arrows since I got that bow. I've never bought new arrows for it. I've lost some along the way. That's Robin Hooded them and ruined them. I've broken them. So like I'm from 12 down to about 6 now, which is actually still pretty impressive. Like I don't miss much. And some of mine, like I lost 2 just because I shot the back of one. So like that was actually like even more impressive. But I break knocks on them anyway. So I have 2 arrows that are like actually not flawed. So all my others have holes in the fletchings or the veins, which is like where the feathers would be on an arrow, and they're messed up just from me like shooting them over and over again. They still fly pretty good. They're just not perfect. So whenever I got there, I got set up in my stand. I put a target out, and I put it out at exactly 30 yards, and that's like exactly where my feeder is. And I took a couple of practice shots with my 2 good arrows just because I wanted to make sure that I was like comfortable. If a deer got right there, that I would know exactly like, hey, I can take that shot. I feel good about it. Yeah. And then of those 2 arrows, the one that shot the closest to the center, I picked to be my special arrow for this occasion. So like a lot, but your lucky arrow. What I'm saying is a lot led up to this hunting trip. So I was really like looking forward to, and my whole intention was to shoot a doe. A doe or a spike, because that's all you can legally shoot. It's the end of the season. I just want to shoot a doe, have it butchered or processed, bring it back here, like have the meat so I can start cooking for everybody. And my first day, I was there for 2 days. My first day was not good. Like, I mean, it was as good as seeing nothing can get. Like, it was nice. The weather wasn't too bad. This was after it snowed. There was still snow on the ground and everything, but it wasn't like super cold. I felt good, and just nothing came in. Next morning was cold again. Nothing came in. So I was at my last night of hunting, and I was feeling good. So one thing to point out is that I don't have like a rangefinder. A lot of people when they hunt, especially with archery, but also with guns too, they'll use a rangefinder to see how far away. I don't have a rangefinder, so I just, like I said, I put my target up at 30 yards, and I had one spot marked, and I'm like, basically, I know if the deer gets right next to parallel with the feeder, basically, or perpendicular to the feeder. Like
you kind of can gauge, like, okay, like that's a sweet spot.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's where I'm like comfortable taking a shot. I know it's not a 30-yard pin. And I get out there. I kind of go out early the second afternoon, and it was like a hot day, so I was really expecting the deer to be moving much better. And finally getting out, because like I said, it had snow and everything, so they've probably been hunkered down trying to stay warm and stuff. And I get out there like 3:30, and I'm just kind of getting set up. And this time I took my sister's 243 with me, because it was at my grandpa's, and I was like, you know what? If something comes out and it's 100 yards out and never comes into the feeder, like my goal here is to bring home meat. So I'm like, I'm gonna take it with
last-ditch effort
with a gun. Basically, I was trying to save myself a little better.
Let me pause you real quick. So guys, I'm telling you, like he was down, like he was ready for this moment of shooting this deer. Like this dude was documenting and Snapchatting like this whole time building up to that point. Like it was like some like Wilderness Channel like hunting show that he was trying to put on here.
Well,
like,
Snapchats are great. I was giving everybody the rundown of the wind situation, how I was feeling, everything.
Yo, you were.
I was excited. A lot led up to this point. And honestly, that was part of what like took me a little longer to get out there. I was having fun though. Like I was enjoying my time out there.
That's how hunting really should be. I think it's like the build up. It's like the whole process up to that point. Because if you think about it, like actually shooting the deer, shooting the animal, that takes like half a second maybe, or like it's a moment. It's all that.
I wanted to record it. I just didn't have anything to like record it with. Yeah. But I thought that would be cool to have like a video of me shooting it.
Your GoPro.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
My GoPro is like too old. It would not pick it up very well.
Think about that though, like having like that GoPro like on your head or whatever.
I thought about mounting it on my bow.
Or doing
you
that
can mount
too.
it on your bow. I would think that would work.
And watching the arrow like come out, I think that'd be like a really cool shot.
Yeah, but it's so that arrow comes out so fast.
Yeah, but
like you can't slow it.
But to see like it just happen, to actually hit the deer, and you'd have to have a super slow-mo camera to be able to capture an arrow going through the air.
Yeah, but I mean, they have like good shows will have like slow-mo of them and stuff. It's pretty cool. That's one thing that you'll realize whenever you watch slow motion of whitetails. When you shoot at a whitetail with a bow, typically they duck down, so they flinch, and they flinch so fast that they flinch like 3 or 4 inches, sometimes more, sometimes like all the way up to like 8 inches, that they'll drop down before the arrow gets to them.
Yeah.
So whenever you're bow hunting for a whitetail, you'll oftentimes aim. There'll be like your lungs, which is like your big section right behind the shoulder, and then in the lower part of that is where the heart's going to be, and that's like your vitals is where you're going to aim. But then under that, there's kind of a hairline, like where their shoulder kind of creases, and a lot of times that's where you want to aim. That way they can drop all the way down 8 inches, and you're still going to hit like a double lung penetration, which is going to expire the deer pretty quickly.
Yeah. You're going to have that foamy blood kind of start spilling out.
Yeah, it's more pink. Heart blood will be like really red, real dark.
Yeah.
So I get out there, right? And I get out there early, and I'm set up, and I'm setting up the gun first, because I'm like, okay, like what am I going to have to set this on? That way I can get a good shot. Like, okay, I can see everywhere, because I hadn't set it up before, because I wasn't planning on hunting with the gun. And I look up, and three doe came in, like real quick. They were there. I didn't hear them coming up. It's impressive. Like, they're just so quiet, so stealthy, like just naturally. They're not trying to. They're just coming in. That's how they have to live their lives. And 2 of them were younger. They were probably yearlings. And there was one that was an older, more mature doe. I've seen her before. She came out whenever I was hunting with my sister. And she was being real skeptical. And that was the one that I was like, you know what? This is the deer that I'm going to take. It was more mature. It was bigger body, so I'd have more meat. And I literally just had to wait for her to come in. But my bow was literally hanging up in the tree. My backpack was on the tree. My release was down in the bottom of my backpack. It's Velcro. I was just kind of freaking out because I was on the spot. These deer came in so quick.
Yeah.
So I grabbed my backpack, and I'm pulling it around. And like every time she would look at me, I would just like freeze, like just holding it straight out. I dig in there. Like I'm just quiet as can be, because I'm literally just in a tree stand with no walls or anything. Like, I'm just in a tree stand. And she's looking up at me every now and then. Like if I move too quickly or too much, she looked up at me. And there was like 3 times that she backed out of the, like we have fence around our feeder because he's got wild hogs and sheep and stuff.
I helped you set it up.
Wait. Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, you and Clint came out there and helped me. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
So there was multiple times that she jumped out of the fence and back in, and like she never got to that 30-yard mark where I wanted her. So I was like kind of grabbing the gun, going back and forth, like, what do I do? Should I take? Anyway, I waited 10 minutes, which doesn't seem like long, but for me it was like forever.
Well, in that moment, like hunting, like it just that time just draws out.
Dude, the entire time, like my heart was just pounding. Just hard. Like there was multiple times I was trying to breathe. I was focused on my breathing, trying to like calm my heart rate down. But it was just, there was so much leading up to this moment. I built it up real big in my head, and like I know that I can't be too loud or she's gonna run away. Like if she decides to run away, like I can't just grab the gun and shoot her. Like that's not how it works. Like she's gone.
Yeah, gone.
So eventually she gets up right to the 30-yard line, and she gets turned broadside, and I pull back, and she kind of looked at me for a second, and she went back down eating, and I was on her like perfectly. It felt really good, and I was just waiting. She took one step with her like right shoulder and just opened up, gave me a perfect shot, and I released, and it felt good. Like whenever like you practice over and over again, like you really have like a feeling of what a good release is and like what a bad one is. It felt good. So like it hits her, she hops the fence, takes off, like it's like that. It's just so quick. She's gone. And I'm pumped, you know, I'm hyped up and everything. I'm kind of like celebrating, but like quietly. It's a weird state to be in, you know. And that was when I made another video. I was like, all right, it's like, I just told the story. I just hit this deer. Like, we're going to give her 30, 45 minutes. I'm going to go find her.
That is like kind of a weird thing that happens in like moments like that where time draws out, your adrenaline's going, and like once like kind of the tension gets released, no pun intended.
It's so weird.
It's like your brain kind of has to like recalibrate itself real quick.
That's exactly right.
It's like that just happened. It seemed like it lasted a while, but it happened just in an instant, and then you're kind of like, okay, now reassessing what the situation is.
There was so much like anticipation and so much kind of fear in your head, but like confidence. Like I got to make this shot. I can't miss. But like you don't over pressure yourself. Breathe. Take a deep breath. Like when you release a bow, you really want to almost surprise yourself with like the pullback. And mine's a trigger release. And so that kind of happened perfectly, because sometimes you'll jump if you're like anticipating it, and you'll flinch a little bit, and like, no, I felt good. I like my arrow wasn't in the ground, so I knew that it was like it was a good hit on the deer. Like it sounded good. There's a sound it makes, like when the arrow like hits, it's kind of like it hit something solid.
It's like a specific thud.
Yeah, and deer jumped, ran off. Anyway, I give it like 45 minutes, fill up the feeder, get the cameras, just doing things because like you're supposed to, especially when you shoot a deer with a bow or any animal with a bow, you really want to give them time to expire because you got to think like any little mess up in your shot or the way they flinch or something, and like they may not like die very quickly. They may be running around with it. And so I started looking though, and I could not find any blood, which was like a very quick like bad sign. And luckily it was like 4:15 whenever I shot the deer, so it was like 5 o'clock, and I was like looking for her, and it was still light outside. I couldn't find any blood. My arrow wasn't there, so my arrow definitely hit the deer, and I looked everywhere for her. I watched a couple videos too, just on like some tips to like tracking deer as they leave after you shoot them, and like where they tend to go. They tend to try to go find water, or they'll try to take like the easiest route places. So if there's a field, sometimes they'll just like haul ass straight through it and just like get to the other side. They won't really like try to climb a big ridge usually or go down one. And man, I spent like 4 hours looking for this deer, and like I never could find her.
Sad.
All that leading up to I shot this deer and could not find her.
And it sounds like it kind of all started from kind of like they caught you with your pants down a little bit,
but like I recovered so well, you know. And here's another thing. So while I'm looking for this deer, I come up on this other field, and at this point I have not found the doe, and I have not found blood. I haven't found anything, and I'm pretty worried about it. And I come up on this field, and this spike is like trying to cross the field, and like we've been wanting to shoot the spike, like my family has, just to get the genetics out of the herd. Yeah. But also my family would have like eaten the meat at the time. Like I didn't know, and I didn't call them up or anything, but they were saying like after the fact, they're like, yeah, like we would have eaten it if you wanted to shoot the spike, and like I could have had it, you know, since I didn't find my deer. And like I even got my sister's gun out and like literally put the crosshairs on him, and I was just like, no, like I owe it to this deer to find the one that I shot originally. And like even though I was worried that I wasn't gonna be able to find her, I was just like very persistent. I was like, no, like I'm gonna find this deer. Like I wanted the meat. It was my last chance to get a deer. I was really kind of put all my eggs in that basket too, and so I let the spike walk, kept looking, and still never found the deer. I ended up talking with my grandpa. He came out, and we got like the headlights out and flashlights and everything, and I walked like the whole quarter of his property over there, and I walked it, drove it with ATVs, just looked everywhere. And basically like what he was telling me is we kind of agree that most likely that deer either got down and crawled kind of into some of the brush that's there. That stuff is just, or not even crawled into it, but like you like jump into it, get into it basically, which is where they a lot of times bed down and stuff. But that it's so thick,
it's hard to like
you're not
get in it and
you
try
can't
to see
you can't even get in it and try to find it exactly. And then also there's a property line, so if it did cross to the neighbors, there's no telling where on their property it could have went anyway. So we basically did what we felt like was the most that we could do to find that deer, like out of respect for the animal, obviously, but also for me to be able to get meat and, you know, to be successful. That was my first deer with a bow, so like obviously I really wanted to retrieve it. I was actually gonna skin the hide and tan it. I was just so excited for that. So
every bit of the deer, huh?
No, like I wish I was that. Like I was capable of doing that. I was gonna bring the heart back, and I was actually gonna call you up and see if you wanted. I was gonna cook the heart that night.
I tried it.
There's like some recipes. I was gonna cook it up, and then I was gonna have the rest butchered. I was gonna get a lot of jerky so I could just give it out to all our friends. I know everyone loves deer jerky.
I like deer. Some people don't like deer.
Yeah,
I like deer.
I was gonna have the back straps to cook up for people. You know, burgers, make stew. I was very excited for this deer. And then, I was going to tan the hide just because like I thought it'd be really cool. It's like my first deer that I kill with my bow, because it's like, just something I've been trying to do for a long time.
What's like really important, kind of what you had said, like, you couldn't find the deer, kind of got away from you, and you had a chance to get another one. And this kind of goes to like people misinterpreting what hunting is and how hunters view hunting itself. And it's like, you felt like yes, you had an opportunity to actually get a deer and make sure that you covered that basis, but you had like a responsibility to the deer, but just, like finishing out what you kind of started, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's kind of how like I was raised, obviously, and I grew up differently because we also raised animals and butchered them, and like, you know, that's part of showing livestock and raising animals and just the country like that I grew up in and stuff. But I just, have like a respect for the animal's life that I took.
Yeah.
So I can't neglect that just because, oh, well, here comes an easy opportunity to drop one and get the meat. And I was worried that if I did shoot the buck, like nothing stops me from still finding the deer, right? But I was worried that it would kind of like hinder like my efforts that I was putting out, because now I already have a buck, and I got to deal with, hanging him up, gutting him, and cleaning him out, skinning him if I want to keep that one, field dressing him basically, and getting him ready to go to processing. So I'd have to do all that in the dark while it's cold and everything, and then still go out, look again for this doe, and possibly find her, bring her back, do the same
more
thing
work for you.
Yeah, and I thought that, like, not that I would mind the more work, but I just thought if I started on the buck, then I would lose like interest in going to find the doe, and I didn't think that was right.
One of my and this is something that like I'll always remember. It's one of those like when you're young experiences that you have that kind of stick with you and affects kind of like your outlook past that point. And before this moment, I had seen animals get shot, killed, and didn't ever bother me. It's kind of something that I've kind of always understood and been comfortable with. But I saw an animal get shot and suffer for a little bit. And like watching an animal be in an agonizing pain made me really like almost sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the fact that like the shot was taken. That didn't bother me. It was the fact that it like had to suffer up until the point that we could get up to it and, finish it off and take it out of its misery.
Yeah, that's always unfortunate whenever you come up on an animal like that. And I think we can all relate. And I've walked up on a deer before that had its hind legs stuck in the barbed wire fence. It tried to jump the fence, and the last two wires, it got its leg caught in between them and twisted up.
Yeah.
And it was like a spike, but he had basically twisted off his entire back legs. So by the time I got out there, I got his legs unhung from the fence, and he was crawling on his front feet, dragging his whole hindquarters. It had ruined him. So that was obviously very painful for the deer, but also essentially that deer is now coyote bait. It's going to get eaten alive though. Yeah. Coyotes are going to come up behind it and start grabbing it at its back ends and start tearing it apart like alive. And obviously I didn't let that happen. We called a game board, and they told us go ahead and expire the deer and then put it out. And then I think they came and picked it up and actually took what was salvageable of the meat, and they have like they have like a program. They give it out to homeless and process it and stuff. So that was good. Kind of at least some good came out of it. But no, I've seen that before, and that wasn't even caused by. I mean, ultimately, it's caused by humans who put up a fence there, right? But that wasn't caused by like a hunter that had a bad shot, or even like a car hit it on the highway or something.
Wasn't intentional.
It just had happened. If I hadn't found it and put it out of its misery, basically, it would have suffered until it eventually died.
Yeah. Because like you hunt not to put an animal into misery.
Yeah.
You want it to be a quick, easy, because nature's not always going to do that for it. It might die another way in a very agonizing, situation that it puts itself in. You hunt to do it as quickly and humanely as possible. It's such a weird thing, I'm sure, for people that don't necessarily agree with hunting or don't really understand it. It seems so contradictory. You're like, well, if you don't want to put it in misery, then why are you killing it? Like, why are you taking its life? And it's just like, well, it's like the way nature works. It's going to die eventually.
Yeah, probably a lot more likely just to die of a car wreck. Like that's just in rural,
especially here, like in Texas,
like
and Central Texas, especially.
So on the last episode, I did say that it's like negligible the amount of wild animals that die from old age. While that is true, the pushback to that is essentially that the animals don't die of old age because they never reach old age, because as they get a little bit older, they get slower, and then natural selection comes in and takes them out, basically. Predators end up picking them off because they're a little bit slower in the herd. A predator, like a coyote killing a deer, is a lot more painful than even the deer that ran off and suffered from my shot. Because while I did shoot the deer and lose it, it probably ran 800 yards in a minute, probably not even, or a couple minutes of anything. And by the time it got, 5, 10, 15 or 20 minutes even from me taking the shot, I'm confident that deer was probably expired. That deer was dead by then. It's just a matter of that deer put itself in a position that I wasn't able to find it. But I don't think that my shot was like in the back leg where that deer's just gonna be laying around for weeks with an arrow in it and eventually like get better or eventually die. Like I don't think that was the case. I think it was a much better shot, and that's part of the responsibility of the hunter. So I felt terrible wounding an animal that I didn't like get to recover and make sure that it was put down all the way, but
and just put
that's part of it too. Whenever it comes to hunting and things, I knew that going out there. I've known that whenever I've been practicing with my bow. That's part of the reason why I practiced a lot, and it just was unfortunate this time that happened. But
well, man, I'm
gonna try again next year.
Well, you have
hopefully it'll be more successful.
When does it start again?
October, November.
So you still got parts of this year that you can fulfill your New Year's resolution.
Yeah. I can still get one before the year's
over.
I think I want to get my own rifle this year actually, and try to do like a public land rifle hunt.
Yeah.
I don't feel comfortable doing like a spot and stock type hunt with a bow yet, but with a rifle and get within 300 yards, I think I can take that shot.
That's like assassin shit, stalking up on an animal with a bow.
I just think it's really cool. I watch too much Meat Eater, man. That's the problem. I watch Meat Eater, and you can find it on YouTube. You can find it on Netflix. You should really watch it. But I watch that, and then a bunch of just like their whole crew has their own TV shows basically on YouTube that they film, and they do like all these crazy backpacking hunts, and it seems incredible. I want to try it. So.
Well, been an interesting hunting story. Sorry it couldn't, end in a
crescendo
that,
Yeah, all that story just to say I was still unsuccessful. Yeah. Now, Macy will tell you that all I've been telling her is that I wanted to shoot a deer with my bow, and I did shoot a deer with my bow.
So in her eyes, it's successful.
Well, that's what she tried to say. She's like, well, you were successful. I was like, no. What I meant was I wanted to shoot a deer with my bow and recover it and have the meat.
Well, that's a good point. It's all about perspective, right? Yeah. It's all about how you look at it, whether it's a failure or success. It's important. That was that in mind. All right, man. You want to go into some current events? I think we got a couple.
Yeah. You wanna start off?
Yeah. So, and this is something that we've actually had a conversation about. I don't know, probably not on the podcast, but definitely like driving, especially. We went snowboarding, skiing during December, New Year's time, and I remember on our way back we were talking about it. So you're going on a long trip from where we live in Texas to the place we went to, Colorado. It was about a 12-hour drive, give or take, with stops and stuff. So quite a bit of a haul. And we were talking about, being able to have like a Tesla. Yeah. And being able to just have it kind of do its thing. And obviously you're paying attention, but, having it do most of the, I guess, brain work, you can kind of relax, maybe listen to a podcast a little bit more than you normally would if you're paying attention to what you're doing when you're driving. So it's just like an interesting thing to kind of like, it's becoming more of a realistic thing once some of these cars, and it doesn't have to be electric, it can be gas as well, that are going to have these capabilities for autonomous driving. And it's happening, I think, quicker than most people might be comfortable with. So there was this article, and this happened, I think, last year. It came out in January, but the actual event happened. So this guy, and he filmed it all. Like, so it's not that the fact that it's the longest self-driving trip, it's recorded. Like the whole trip is recorded. Watching the car do its thing. It's got, if you don't know Tesla's very well
at all.
He did so.
Okay, he did.
He
like
has
the
very
stuff.
very minimal.
Okay.
For most of the drive, he didn't have anything to do with what the car was doing, changing lanes, turning, any of that. So he basically went from San Francisco to LA, and I think that's like about a 4-hour drive, just about. And kind of what's cool about it is you get to see the middle screen in a Tesla, and it shows the car in the road, and it shows everything that it's detecting. So like,
right,
if there's a car, it gives you like a visual, so you see basically what the computer's seeing. And so it's just kind of showing you like this is able to be done. Driving, having a 4-hour drive, that's impressive to not have to touch it. And he touched it only, I think, one time, and because it was like there was this debris in the road that the car didn't recognize, and it wasn't even something like I think he could have ran over it. but he just didn't really know, and so he kind of swerved around it, but that was it. Other than that, the car did it completely from his, where he left from to his destination.
Wow, that is impressive. Hey, on that real quick, I just saw, because I saved this for like current events like 2 weeks ago. There's a pretty cool video. I'll show it to you afterwards. But it's a Tesla driving at night, and it's showing like their beta version of something, I guess, that they're planning on coming
like
out with
night vision type stuff.
No, it's not. It's not that it's night vision. It's just it's driving at night, like during this video, and this guy's like doing like a beta test of it, and a deer runs out in front of it, and it dodges it. And it was like very quick, very responsive. And it shows on the screen, like you're talking about, the car is driving. It shows on the screen, and it shows like the object. Obviously, it doesn't have a deer, but it shows the object come out and the car like kind of like swerve.
That's impressive.
It's super impressive. And like that just goes to show, like, basically, that's just the start of the capabilities of driving cars.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to get to a point where you don't have to touch the steering wheel, or you barely have to touch it just to like make sure you're up and stuff, which is really what it's at now.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember what city has it. Oh man, I just watched a video or I read something about it. There's a city, I want to say maybe somewhere in Arizona. Anyway, they have this taxi service that is completely, you do not drive. There's not a driver in the seat. It's a minivan, so it's like a Chrysler Pacifica, and it's all mounted with these kind of, you can tell it's different. It's got this big thing on top of the van that's all of its LiDAR sensors, the things that detect kind of where it's going and what it's doing. And it's a taxi service, and it works. It's you're able to use it. It's not like a closed thing where they have like specific people like, hey, try this out, go on this route. No, you can order it, and it takes you, and it's only within the city, so it's a very small area relatively, but it's a start. Like and with these things, it just takes the compilation of data for these AI systems to learn and figure out, okay, as like a deer, running in like. Eventually, they're going to know exactly what a deer is, or in a situation, or maybe an area that's prone for deers to be crossing the way. Like if there's one of these taxi services driving in Central Texas, in Austin or something, where there's deer everywhere, it's going to be maybe more alert to something real quick crossing the road. You know what I mean? So
imagine if it picks up like in a world where like super AI and like very high tech cars, great cameras and everything. Imagine the car that's actually driving, and a deer's in the bar ditch, which is like what you see oftentimes. And you're like, okay, please don't run out in front of me. Like you kind of slow down, be cautious of it. Yeah. But like imagine if they could pick up like basically all the hair on the deer and see like micro movements that indicate whether it's going to run out in the road or whether it's going to like run the other way. You can
tell like if it's like a twitch of like,
yeah, exactly. As soon as that deer like starts to twitch or like turns head, like something you and I even couldn't pick out and like detect, but the car would actually be. I feel like there's got to be.
That's totally. I mean,
it's gonna get there eventually. It's so insane.
These systems are so quick to make a decision. Like with cars that already have it, where they detect something in front of them and immediately stop, put on the brakes, and it does it so quickly.
Yeah. No, my grandfather, he just got his new truck, and it's set up where it basically won't let him crash into somebody in the front, but like you can hit cruise control, and then you can do the adaptive cruise, so it follows the car in front of you and then
keeps its distance.
Yeah, and then it also has the lane assist, whatever. Yeah, so it also keeps him like in the middle lane.
Yeah,
like it's not autonomous at all, but for a truck, like it's a lot more. It's
safety
like
measures.
It is safety measures, and it's also like allows you to kind of like be a little more comfortable in the car whenever you're like going on trips, and like you gotta, especially like if you got kids in the back and like you're constantly having to like turn around, like yell at them or something. People drift lanes, like that happens, and this
takes the human error out of it, or helps that human error that obviously exists with cars and people driving. I had an accident a couple years ago with my truck, and I have a dent in my bumper because of it. That could have been avoided if I had even just as simple as like the backup detecting. My truck doesn't have that, and so it beeping at me could have saved me put my bumper into a little bitty Fiat. But these systems, like I watched a commercial, which it was like, damn, that's kind of a dark commercial when you think about it. It was like a luxury car commercial, and there's this little girl crossing the street, and this lady is just driving, and she's not paying attention, and she's like reaching for a coffee, and the car stops like right before it gets to the girl, and the girl's like sitting there kind of like smiling. I was like, Jesus, it's kind of a dark commercial, but it's amazing.
That's the
really
point of them, right? Safety. You were talking about the taxi service. Macy and I were kind of in one of those whenever they were still like testing it out when we were in Vegas. It was an Uber. It was an Uber or Lyft, and it was a self-driving car, but there's like a driver and a passenger with it. And so basically they came, they picked us up, they're like, hey, like y'all are comfortable, blah, blah. Like we didn't special request it. We didn't know it was coming. We just got there and they're like, so basically what it is this is like, we're testing out this new software and it's for self-driving, and it was put onto like a Mercedes. And so it was just like a Mercedes that they added this like equipment to. And basically it would drive, fall on the road. And so the whole time the driver didn't touch the wheel. I don't think he touched anything. He just sat there, but he was like there for like safety measures if something goes wrong. And then the passenger just like recorded all the data. So he had his computer hooked up to the car the entire time, and they recorded the data, and he took us like all the way to the airport. And it got there like really well. Like it took most of the turns and everything. The only time it messed up was getting into the parking garage. So basically like once they turned off the street, they didn't have like kind of the GPS and data to like know where to go safely with people walking through airport parking and stuff. So the guy had to manually take over.
It's not perfect,
but it was very cool. And that was 2 years ago. So, you know, there's obviously going to still keep progressing with that AI and start learning.
The company that I couldn't remember, it's Waymo is the company, and I believe that they're owned by Google. And it's in Phoenix right now.
Yeah.
And it looks like Detroit might be one of their next spots. So it's not everywhere, but it's just one of those things where like now Phoenix is going to be one of those cities where they're going to have that data, and it's probably just going to expand their ability to have these cars going everywhere. It's just really cool. It's something that just like is like kind of like that VR conversation we had on the last episode. It's just looking into the future and understanding kind of where we're going and the ability with the technology that we have and just the progression. It's going so quick, and it's gonna, if you don't pay attention, it'll move past you, and you're gonna be standing in a world that you don't recognize. And it's exciting. It really is. And you know, I think things like this, you know, people are like, ooh, self-driving cars, like I don't want something driving for me. It's just like, well, when you think about certain situations like a taxi where, you know, you're not going to be driving anyway. You're in a city that you're, you know, in a vacation, you know, then what does it matter? And if the stats come back to where it's safer, you know, there's less crashes than humans, which is totally possible.
It's going to get there.
And it will. No, I totally believe that too. I agree with you. It's just something that, like everything else, when change happens, people are uncomfortable with it. But eventually, and I think this is something that's not such a, it doesn't happen so quickly. Like it's obvious a progression that we're going to be so used to it by the time it becomes like an everyday thing, with these robotic
it's just something we're going to grow into, like our
Yeah.
kids and like the other generations. They're not going to understand what it's like to drive a stick shift.
Yeah.
Even my kids aren't going to know what a stick shift is, most likely.
Sure.
Like they will, because like I want to have maybe a stick shift sports car or something. But other than that,
There's probably kids now that don't really.
Oh, plenty of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not that great at driving stick shift. I've only driven a few.
I've never touched a stick shift, actually.
Really?
I mean, I've been in some, but I've never driven one.
So like you don't know how to, but you've rode dirt bikes, so you understand.
No,
the concept
I
of it.
understand the concept
but-
and like the clutch and everything and how to like do all that kind of thing, but actually doing it,
Yeah.
no, I've never actually driven a stick shift.
Yeah.
I think if I had like a cool sports car, I definitely want a stick shift. I think that's like part of it.
it's
Like,
part of it.
you know, like the enjoyment of, you know, being connected to the car. You got anything going on?
I got an interesting one. So it's short too, so that's good. In 2013, basically, this British IT worker named James Howells threw away a hard drive that had a digital wallet containing a shit ton of Bitcoin. So he had been mining cryptocurrency like a long time ago, before Bitcoin was worth anything. And who knows what for, right? Because back then Bitcoin was being used for black market purchases and stuff. Yeah. But also this is an IT guy, so maybe he was just, I don't know, into it or had an idea. But anyway, fast forward to now, basically, he had thought whenever he threw out this hard drive, he thought he had backed up all the files on it, and it turns out he hadn't. He tosses out this hard drive, and he realizes it, like a couple years ago, he realized, like, holy shit, I don't have, like, all this Bitcoin that is now worth totaling $275 million.
Jesus.
That's how much the Bitcoin is like worth that was in that digital wallet that he trashed. So basically he knows like where he threw it out, I guess based off the way he, like where he was living or whatever. This is in Newport, Wales. And he got with like local authorities, the city council or whatever, and basically wanted to pay to excavate an entire landfill site that he believes would essentially lead to him finding it. I mean, keep in mind, you have $275 million.
Yeah.
If it costs you $5 million to find it,
yeah,
it's still worth it. The city pushed back, said no, of course they can't let him do that. He offered to donate 25% of it. It's almost $70 million.
Yeah,
to
better
the
than
city.
nothing. You know,
He offered to donate to the city.
Yeah,
and they still turned it down.
Wow.
Yeah, so he was going to offer to the city in order to distribute to all local residents who lived in Newport, if he were to find it, of course. And it said on here it would end up being like $240 a person.
Wow.
But unfortunately, they refused the offer and he said that they wouldn't even have a face-to-face meeting with him to talk about it.
You would think like maybe have like a hard drive with like a GPS thing on it, like a little.
But also, this is 2013.
That's true.
So it's also, hard drives and everything are a lot different now.
Did you hear about the guy?
I don't even know if it survived that long either. Think
a
about like what all goes in a
landfill
landfill: rain and
dirt
snow and dirt and just
yeah.
like running over with heavy machinery and being compacted and stuff.
I don't know.
Even if he finds it, there's.
Crazy.
But
so
I
much
feel
money.
like you get somebody who knows what they're doing. They take it apart.
So
and they
basically,
can recover the
buried treasure. That's what it is.
essentially
Buried treasure.
Essentially,
A
lot of treasure.
Something that we can kind of end this on. It goes back to your story. There was a guy that he didn't lose it, but he got locked out of his hard drive that had
His digital wallet on it,
millions of dollars on it of Bitcoin.
Oh my goodness!
And he's got 2 more tries left. Like it's like currently has like 2 more tries left.
It's one of those get it or delete it too, probably.
Yeah, and I guess if he doesn't, he's gonna be locked out forever. And it's like it's millions and millions of dollars of Bitcoin. Bitcoin, man, that's something that like I cannot grasp.
I don't get it. I don't trust it because I don't know it.
It's weird, but it's like it's crazy how much people have made off of it.
Oh yeah.
It's
Well,
like,
people have put their savings into it though too.
And there's some like stores and stuff that you can use Bitcoin. Like there's companies that will accept Bitcoin as payment.
Yeah.
It's just a weird thing. I was hanging out with a good buddy of mine this last weekend, watching the fight, and he was talking about Bitcoin, and he said like he had invested a little bit in it. It's like not Bitcoin because there's cryptocurrency is like the overarching thing, but Bitcoin's one type of it, and it's just a different type anyway. He said he invested a little bit in it, maybe seeing if it'll rise. I don't think he put a whole lot into it, but it's just one of those things where it's like
cryptocurrency makes sense as like a worldwide currency.
Yeah.
Because like you can't really trust the American dollar these days with everything that's going on. I mean, but also if we have a way that you can have a cryptocurrency that is worldwide and actually has value and you can buy and sell things with it, why would we not get on that system?
But I did this earlier today, actually.
Try to learn it.
I just was like, what's mining Bitcoin? Because you always hear about like mining Bitcoin. It's like, what is mining for Bitcoin? What does that mean? And it goes into like some kind of like, it's a transaction like attached to a blockchain. It's like you start going down that road of trying to figure that out, and you're like, oh my god, like this is even more confusing.
Yeah,
it's a crazy thing, and that's a whole different side of it. That's like the technical. It's the people actually doing the
IT guys,
the IT part of it. The investment part, I'm sure that's a little bit more, I guess, accessible to.
Oh yeah, more transactional. People. You probably just buy
the Bitcoin that exists or whatever. So like. There was this story basically of this guy. So there's these graphics cards that came out, and graphics cards are what you put into like personal computers. You can buy them anywhere. But there's this specific type of graphics card that they're actually really expensive because they're really high power. They're made for gaming and doing all kinds of like different stuff on computers. But they're like $2,000 a piece.
Yeah,
it's really expensive. And so this guy ended up buying quite a bit of them, and this is like someone in his apartment. He's doing this. He's got this whole grid layout of these, and I mean, there's like 100 of them, all gridded out, and they're all connected. There's wires going everywhere, and he said that this is mining Bitcoin. However, it does it, I'm not sure. And he's making $20,000 a month off of this rig. And if you think about it, there's 100 of them, $2,000 a piece. The payoff. Eventually, he'll pay this stuff off, and he said he's looking to get another one set up. It's like Jesus, like, and this dude's doing it in his apartment. It's like, what is this? Like, it's so arbitrary.
I'm gonna look into it more. I really don't have any idea. I've never tried to look into it either.
Yeah, I haven't really made an effort to either. But it's like, should I have some kind of? Because I mean, it's like one of those things where it's you're gonna look back and be like, damn, I was so stupid. And that already has happened. There's been like, there was a tweet of a guy that's pretty well known in Bitcoin and that kind of realm, and he had tweeted way back, like probably in 2010 or something like that. He tweeted, Bitcoin's going nowhere, and it showed like the price of Bitcoin. It was, a couple cents or something, very little money per Bitcoin, and now Bitcoin's worth a couple thousand or however much. It's a lot per Bitcoin.
Yeah, this article.
And he was like, "I'm so stupid." Like that was his like more recent tweet, and he like basically was tweeting back at him. He's like,
"Oh yeah, he like
I'm such an idiot."
So at the time of this article that I was reading about, it was $37,000 is what Bitcoin was trading at.
Yeah,
that's insane. Yeah, because people were buying it for cents on the dollar.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's a crazy world we live in where cryptocurrency and self-driving taxis and Jesus, where are we at? We're in the future, dude. We're in the future. VR.
We're in the future now.
I have a VR thing.
We're headed to the future.
We are in an insane time in human history and the world history. Like I feel very blessed and kind of I'm excited that I was able to live in this.
Oh, definitely.
That I had a chance to live.
The jackpot.
Yeah, and I mean obviously you can say that.
Live in a lot of cool things too.
Yeah, like what are they gonna see?
But I don't think my grandparents got to live in that much. It just wasn't so fast growing, quick pace. Like they got to see cars become, popular, but that's about it.
And then like it's like you don't know, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
like we don't know what's in the future. We don't know what will be potentially missing. You know what I mean? So it's like,
I feel like though it's on an exponential growth right now, and like we are really rounding that curve and like making significant
the progress
changes
that we've made in the past. What do you want to say? We'll say 100 years versus the rest of history. It's been crazy.
It is
never been seen before. Can't even fathom the amount of progress that we've made. It's cool. It's exciting. I like it.
It's a good life. Let's go live it.
All right, man. Catch you later. Peace.